Go
Morning,
ahead.
everyone, and welcome. My name is Alicia Doyon, and today we have Lawrence presenting Able to Cook, a webinar about different tips and techniques in the kitchen. Lawrence is originally from Bronx, New York, and currently is the executive producer of Abled and On Air, as well as creator and anchor. Lawrence currently resides in Montpelier with his wonderful wife, Arlene. And just a friendly reminder that this meeting is being recorded for future use.
Okay. Welcome to Able to Cook, the one and only program that focuses on cooking and people with special needs. And we would like to thank our partners in this endeavor, the Brain Injury Alliance of Vermont, as well as the Division for the Blind Vermont and the Association for the Blind Vermont. Hello, can you hear me, Alicia?
Yes, I can.
Okay. And on today's television program, and this is being recorded for Able to Cook, which is a cooking history program, I'm going to be giving plenty of advice. Let's start with the easiest of advice. Now, there is a website. Let me go to it, and it's now I get. I've never been ashamed of my challenges, and despite my challenges of cerebral palsy and many other situations that I deal with on a daily basis, or I've never been ashamed of my visual impairment. So basically, there is a website called The Blind Chef. Let me get to it before I give you the wrong, not blonde, blind. So, yes, there. Let me see if I can get to the right one. Here. Okay. Here we go. So, before we get to that, there is a website called theblindkitchen.com, www.theblindkitchen.com, and in this, if anybody remembers, there is a chef that was on television. Her name was Christine Ha. She was with she was with Master Chef some years back, and she is blind and visually impaired. And if you go to her website, you can find many things. So it's actually The Blind Cook, and she's also theblindcook.com as well. But for today's website webinar, I'm going to give some advice. Now, when it comes to resources, I'm if anybody can see this, for the magic of television, well, a lot of people who are visually impaired use things with, or I should say, kitchen appliances with huge buttons. And Hamilton Beach and Cuisinart, by the way, we don't get sponsorship from them, but Hamilton Beach and Cuisinart basically have situations with huge buttons. So if anybody can see that. Now, another situation, and I'll give the website towards the end of this webinar. The Division for the Blind in Vermont, if anyone needs it, anybody can see that, which is huge measuring cups there. And as you can see, large numbers. Now, if anyone has a frying pan, who is watching this show, there are things like this. These are rings. No, not engagement rings or wedding rings. But basically, if you are making omelets or hamburgers, in order to see what you're putting in because of your visual impairment, you can put this in the pan like so, okay? And it can basically go up to the line in terms of liquids if you're putting eggs, or if you're putting hamburger, you can make them to form, and so on and so forth. Now, I'm going to give a special website. Let me get to that. Okay. There we go. I found the right one. There we go. Okay. Now, the Blind Kitchen is the correct website I'm giving here. The Blind Kitchen is where adaptive tools, helpful strategies, and specialized knowledge are provided for blind and visually impaired people who want to cook safely, confidently, and independently. The founder's name is Chef Deborah Erickson, and she provides motivational speaking, sharing her own inspirational journey and tools necessary when cooking blind or visually impaired. And if you click on her website, you can see lots of videos. Now, like I had shown with certain adaptive equipment, there here on her website, there's lots of adaptive equipment. One of the things I'm going to recommend, I don't have one here, but one of the things I'm going to recommend, while you are using a knife, you can get something called a cut glove, which is made of special materials so no one cuts themselves while they're cooking. And that's usually the best way. I've had experiences in delis and restaurants, and I've used a cut glove. Safety is paramount in the kitchen, especially for blind and load impaired and vision impaired cooks. Cut gloves are usually designed for home cooks or people professionally that need to protect themselves against painful cuts and kitchen work. The cut-resistant material allows plenty of dexterity, making it easy for slicing, peeling, mandolin use. A mandolin is a type of stand-up knife that the French use, and you can make different cuts when it comes to, like, say, vegetable peeling and so on. Mandolin use, oyster shucking, and much more. Cut gloves are usually made of food-grade material that provide certified level protection at all times, and it's stronger than leather. Now, I can't endorse prices on this show, but you can go and purchase these things. Now, there are other situations. Now, I'm going to give you, for the magic of television, we're going to talk about mayonnaise for a brief minute, and I've made it here. Mayonnaise usually has eggs, oil, and other things in it. You can use different things like you can put dill relish and so on. The biggest thing when it comes, one of the biggest things I'm going to talk about today is we need to feel our food. For those that have visual impairments. So the biggest situation when it comes to recipes and making things, use a huge bowl like so, so you can see what you're doing. Well, those that can't, they can feel what they're doing. Now, I do not have one. I do not have a measuring cup, but you can use big things like this again. But usually, clear bowls have numbers on it. This one does not, but you can get them. Now, another situation that I'm going to mention, let me get back into this, is when it comes to hot, one of my relatives mentioned this to me a long time ago. Certain people that have a larger degree who cannot see at all, or who are completely blind, I'm going to suggest that you get the help of an adult or someone that can help you with a hot pot. One of the things that I've learned in culinary school, yes, I did attend culinary school and I'm doing culinary again this summer. One of the things that I'm going to mention, if you are using a hot pot, we do not have one here, but if the hot pot actually happens either to fall to the floor or spills or some, you basically should back away from it, a couple of inches away from it, let it drop, and then when it cools off, go back and clean it up later. Because one thing you do not want, and I've gotten a couple of burns, yeah, being in the kitchen, you basically can get burned. But one thing that I've learned is back away from it, and when it cools off, get help to take, to clean it up. One thing you don't want is spills on the floor, and then some. If you're working in a professional kitchen, someone happens to slip, and then you're then you're then you're kind of in big trouble. Another situation when it comes to people who are blind and visually impaired are knives. One of the things that, and I'm going to use this as an example, if you are in a professional kitchen or in a kitchen, one of the things that you want to do when you're using a knife is hold it down to your side. You don't want to hold it up because the person that comes in the kitchen, you're going to hurt them. So hold it down to your side, and then it's basically safety first. Another thing when it comes to equipment, when it comes to liquids, there is something you can purchase either from your Voc Rehab program. That for those in Vermont, if you're getting help from Voc Rehab and you're doing cooking as a vocation, you can get plenty of things like this. But when it comes to pouring, I'm going to use this as an example. I brought these as an example. Now, if you can fill up to the line, usually when you pour, something like so. They have a device, don't have one here, but they have a device that you can put to any cup, mug or cup, and it beeps um, when you pour it. So any liquid coffee, milk, juice, anything that you're using for a recipe, it usually can beep when you are finished with it. And then as soon as you pour it out of the cup, it stops beeping. These are things that can um, can be used for people who are visually impaired or blind. I brought this as an example. There are special, now for those that, now this is kind of minute, but for those who have problems tearing, or there are, even with Ziploc bags, usually when you're either pouring something out, there is a device you can actually put on the bag, and it can also beep also, you could pour it out, so on and so forth. There's another website that I'm going to give. Now, the one before was blindkitchen.com, but there is another website that I'm going to use. Called Flag House. Get to it. Oops. Getting it. 1 second. Excuse the technical difficulty. Please stand by. How do you spell? There we go. Oops. Getting it. No. Hold on. There we go. I got it. Okay. It's called Flag House Internet. There we go. There we go. Flag House International. Well, now it's there we go. School specialty Flag House. Well, there's Flag House International U.S. and then there's also in Canada. If you are if anyone that is autistic, or anyone that has specific disabilities, let's say, for example, you want to teach cooking and get special equipment, you can get it in this catalog. They have everything from kitchen equipment to specialized even OT and PT equipment for people with disabilities. They used to be called Flag House International, but now they're part of schoolspecialty.com, which you can get plenty of equipment for people with disabilities. Now, mind you, I am not endorsing any of these. I've used some of these. I've used a lot of these agencies in the past, and I'm using some of them now. But, sometimes we cannot be prideful when it comes to using this equipment, because, people with disabilities need to live pure, independent lives, especially in the kitchen. And without things with huge buttons, we wouldn't be able to live a good quality of life. Because I'm giving a prime example. Years ago, back in institutional days, now this goes back to some things that I've spoken about on Abled and On Air. When it comes to things in institutions, people with disabilities were not treated with the utmost respect. When it came to meals, um, a lot of people in institutions, one prime institution, I mean, Vermont had Brandon State School, but one prime institution in New York was Willowbrook State School, and mostly, now, who doesn't like a good meal? You can't have a good meal if you're force fed, and only given a half an hour to 20 minutes to eat. That is not the way people do things now. Now, in terms of in a lot of these companies who sell these types of equipment, for example, if you have problems using trays, or portion control, especially if you are diabetic. There's color-coded trays or color-coded things with lids, like so. Um, so, without these things, we wouldn't be independent. So let me get to a couple of things again that's important. Getting to another website here. Okay, there's another website that's also important. Another agency that I'm actually going to give here. They have an 800 number. If you're adjusting to vision loss, there are supports and resources, especially for people in the home, so they don't bump into things in the kitchen, so on and so forth. The number is 1-800-323-4238. That is 800-323-4238, and this is Hadley Services. Now, there are workshops on degrees of vision loss, and there are situations, especially here in Vermont, that can also make your home low vision friendly, so on and so forth. Now, one of the things that a lot of people with vision loss do is they bump into things. So one of the things that people do in the kitchen to make it ADA compatible is you usually can have low counters. You can have frying pans with color-coded handles, so on and so forth. Now, the bigger the handle, the better it is. I mean, now, one of the things that I'm going to mention, use a pot holder. Don't have one here, but if you use a pot holder, that's also better. Do not get any don't get any pot or pan with rubber handles. Why? Because rubber handles can burn easy. So things like Cuisinart or Hamilton Beach, if you can get yourself a metal handle and then use a pot holder, that's better. And the biggest thing, I'm using this as an example, the larger the container, the larger the container, the worse it off it becomes when you spill things. So if you can get things in or put things in smaller containers with locking lids, like this container here, make sure it has a locking lid so it doesn't spill, and then you're pretty good to go there. Um, and then what I'm going to do when we edit this, I will put things at the bottom of the screen so people can uh, go and get those resources. That's vitally important. Um, now, if you are using a guide dog in your kitchen, some people have to. You know, guide dogs are also um, trained to open the refrigerator and so on. Now, usually, if you are blind and visually impaired, um, sometimes your housing development can put color coded shelves um, for those that can see color, or shelves that are lower down in the refrigerator so you're able to see them. Now, one of the main things that I'm going to, oh, here we go. I'm going to mention, now I don't work for Amazon, but as you can see, oops, if you put on your computer or phone or tablet, if you put in handy um, cooking aids um, for the visually impaired, Amazon has a lot of things like knives, paring knives, so on and so forth, cutting boards. Um, there are situations like cutting boards that have anti-slip um, anti-slip mats, as you can see here. The cutting board here on Amazon basically is anti-slip with bread stops and spikes, perfect for amputees and the disabled, and it's easy, usually easy for chopping. So try to get those types of devices because it's just a better situation for people with disabilities. Now, one of the myths that I'm going to put out there, a lot of people think that blind people or people with visual impairments cannot cook. Um, I cook for my wife all the time. Um, Blind people can absolutely cook. However, while this requires some adjustments and adaptations, many individuals with visual impairments, such as myself, are successful and independent in preparing meals with various strategies. Now, some of the strategies that I'm going to give here now, this is on AI. I'm not saying that AI is the greatest thing, but adapting the kitchen and using cooking methods, having an organized kitchen, clean and organized, keeping the kitchen organized and decluttered. Let me go through that word. I don't know if anybody has ever seen that television show Hoarders, but if hoard, having a lot of things around your kitchen that you don't have that you absolutely do not need doesn't need to be there. So try to declutter your kitchen and only use the things in your kitchen that you absolutely need. There's a French term called, and I've learned this in culinary school, it's called mise en place, which means everything in its place. So, for example, if you're going to have a recipe, only have on your cutting board or around you, like if you're going to do mayonnaise or you're going to do a smoothie, um, which I'll get to smoothies in a minute. Um, only have the recipe for that recipe there. That's what they mean by mise en place. So anything else that does not need to be there, obviously you don't need pepper in a. I mean, if you want a spicy smoothie, then you put Tabasco sauce. But to each his own. To anybody that wants any strange things in their food, they can put strange things in their food. But that's what mise en place means. So anything in its place that needs to be for that recipe, that's what that French term means. Um, now, I'm there are chefs. One of the things that I'm going to mention before I get back to this, uh, in terms of speed, granted, chefs like Martin Yan and some other people um, can take apart a chicken in 18 seconds. Please, if you're blind and visually impaired, I do not suggest you do that. We have to do things slowly. So either we can get the recipe correct, and also make sure that nobody hurts themselves. This is not speed. This is not Master Chef. This is your own kitchen. Um, Granted, um, if you want to cook for a living, then by all means, I suggest culinary school so people can get the foundations of what they want to do for the rest of their lives. But I don't suggest you do things in a fast manner and hurt yourselves. Um, I mean, everybody loves Martin Yan, but it's not about the speed. It's about um, the accuracy and what you want to do. And by all means, if a recipe calls for, there are certain chefs out there. Um, One of the chefs that I'm going to mention years ago, his name was Justin Wilson. If a recipe called for Worcestershire sauce, he would put the whole bottle. Be careful, especially when you're blind and visually impaired, not to do that, and to get assistance if you need it. Now, um, we went over organized kitchen, tactile cues. Use special labels or tactile labels, braille markings, or color coded items that can help identify and get to the utensils and identify ingredients or utensils. Now, granted, there are talking appliances, talking scales, microwaves, thermometers, provide auditory feedback and measurements and around the cooking process. So if you're using a microwave um, and you have to put 3 minutes, the microwave can talk to you and tell you 3 minutes. There are braille measuring cups. This is not one of them. I am learning to read braille myself, but I suggest you get a braille measuring cup or a spoon or a braille cutting board and safety features with um, flexible arm, levers and so on. Safety precautions can also include please wear short sleeves in the kitchen, not long sleeves. Please wear oven mitts and use timers essential for cooking practices. Adapting techniques, learning to use senses other than sight, such as touch and hearing is key to cooking safety and effectiveness. When chopping or using a cutting board with an attached pivot knife and flexible arm task lamp can enhance safety according to accuracy, according to the APH Connect Center. Pouring and measuring techniques like bending the spoon at right angles to to handle and use wide mouth jars. If the jar has a if the jar is wide, it can aid in accurate pouring according to the National Federation for the Blind. Using your senses, listening to changes in pitch on the stove, or pinch bowls for spices, or using cooking utensils as a white cane can improve precision. Timing and temperature, talking thermometers. Now, so let's get, for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to talk about food temperatures. Very important. The most important thing when it comes to cooking. Cooking cooking temperatures is very important. Meat should be should be at 165 degrees. I mean, if you want it burnt, you can go to 170, or crispy. Some people like crispy edges on their steak, or so on and so forth. But a well done steak can usually be at 165 degrees. If, according to the National Restaurant Association, if you are cooking fish, it's usually at 155. Pork is about 155, so on and so forth. Now, usually, if you're serving things like a smoothie, you pack it in ice, um, and then put your fruit and so on and so forth. But it usually should be served cold. Um, Ice cream should be usually served around 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, if you are in another country, they use the Celsius measurement there, for stoves and refrigerators and so on. But for the purposes of America, we're going to use Fahrenheit. Now, there was a situation years ago that I'm going to talk about. Some years ago, I don't know if anybody out there has heard, there was a elderly woman who sued McDonald's. And the reason why she sued McDonald's was, the coffee was about 100, it was about 8 degrees. I'm sorry. It was about 8 degrees too hot. So it was about 190 degrees, and she spilled it, and she got a very bad burn, and died from and passed away from her injuries. Hot liquids shouldn't be served. Um, Now there's something called nursing home hot. And I'm going to say that very loosely. If you're serving a bowl of soup, you do not want it nursing home hot, or I should, because nursing home hot is basically uh, boiling point. So water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. You don't want to serve someone soup that hot, with either they can burn their tongue or burn their throat, and then you have a medical bill that you have to pay for. Um, so wait for things to cool off, but you don't want to serve it cold. Now, there are cold soups, such as gazpachos. And the next webinar that I'm going to be invited to, I know we didn't have time today, but I mean, I could give a couple of recipes. One of the recipes I'm going to give is here, mayonnaise. So in terms of food temperatures, when you are serving mayonnaise, um, what I usually do when I make this morning fresh. I did not use jar mayonnaise. Now, if you want to cheat and use jar mayonnaise and you don't have time, you can add things to it. But what I usually do is I usually take a bowl, a metal bowl, and put some ice on the bottom of that bowl, or another bowl under it with ice, and then so the bowl stays cold while you're making the whatever you're making. So mayonnaise should be served cold. So let's go over a simple mayonnaise recipe. Now, uh, what you do is um, mayonnaise usually has egg yolks, not the whole egg, not the egg white. If you're feeding 2 or 3 people, then you use 2 eggs. If you want to scale up that recipe, then you can use 5 or 6 eggs. Um, but it's usually the yellow of the egg um, that you want to use. So you put egg yolks. Now, in terms of being blind and visually impaired, use a measuring cup when you're doing this. Um, you use a couple of teaspoons of oil, all right? A couple of teaspoons of, now if you want it sweet, you can use honey mustard, or I like to use Dijon mustard, or even mustard seed to give it that kick. Then you can pour it into the bowl. Again, use the bowl like this, and then you'll be able to, if you can feel or see what you're doing, then you can use things like Tabasco sauce if you want to make it hotter. Um, Usually for mayonnaise, um, people use a small amount of apple cider vinegar as well, and then you mix it up, and there you go. You have mayonnaise. Now hollandaise, in terms of hollandaise, it's a completely different thing. Another uh, another webinar, I can go over some recipes, and this summer I'm going to do more recipes on able to cook. But one of the things that I'm going to talk about is, now, for those that don't know what a double boiler is, a double boiler is basically 2 pots, um, one on top of the other. You know, one has one has um, the water on the bottom. The other one has the egg yolk, and you're making hollandaise. Hollandaise, um, if you or eggs, basically, if you don't do it by temperature, um, or if you do it wrong, you know how many times I've broken hollandaise. If you don't do it and whisk it at a certain um, speed, then it usually breaks or turns into an omelet. But in terms of things like things that contain eggs, like mayonnaise, should be served at. Mayonnaise is usually served cold. Hollandaise is usually served hot. Um, I don't like cold eggs unless you're doing hard boiled. Then you can serve them cold after. Now, in terms of things, last a couple things I'm going to mention. In terms of milk, when it comes to smoothies, you always want to serve this cold. But um, now, I understand labels are really hard sometimes for people with visual impairments like myself to see. So you can get basically magnifiers to see stuff. Now, what you want to do is you want to always check or have someone help you. If you can see this, I don't know if you can because it's very small print, but you always want to check the date on a product to make sure that now there are things like cheese curds and cottage cheese and different things like that. You always want to check the date before you use something. Now, certain stores, now there's a technique used in restaurants, and I've worked in a lot of restaurants. First in, it's called FIFO. First in, first out. Usually, when the truck comes to do inventory or put inventory on a shelf, especially in a refrigerator, they put the fresh stuff to the front, and the stuff that's going to go bad in a couple of days, they put it to the back first, and then or so on and so forth. Or they put the fresh stuff to the back, and then the front they you put the almost expired stuff before it expires. Now, one of the things and this is the last thing I'm going to say before we end, because we only have a couple of minutes. Nursing homes, rehabs, and places like that, hospitals, if they have a refrigerator and you bring somebody something, usually if it's not eaten in 3 days, they have to throw it out. So please, by all means, please use your senses when it comes to food, and please, by all means, use common sense, or I should say, get some help in the kitchen when it comes to cooking, because we want to be cooking independently in the kitchen. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching this edition of Able to Cook and this webinar today, courtesy of the Brain Injury Alliance of Vermont. I'm Lauren Seiler. See you next time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lawrence. You certainly know a lot about cooking.